To lesson 5 of the Hobbyist Beekeeping. This lesson is going to be on installing your bees in your hive. By now you will have your site selected and prepared. You will have your hive positioned at your site with the frames including the foundation inside the hive body. You will have decided how you want to provide supplemental feeding. And if you're using an inline feeder, you will have removed one frame and will have inserted the feeder. If you're using a feeder that's placed on top inside the hive body, you'll have that ready to install after the bees are in the hive. You may have an entrance restrictor in place set to the smallest opening or no opening at all for a couple of days only. Your bees arrive in what's called a package, and it consists of a wooden frame with screening on two sides, allowing for ventilation during transport. Inside there will be approximately 3 pounds of bees, or about 10,000 bees. There will be a queen cage with the queen inside, and a can of sugar water for feed during their transport. The steps for installing a package in your hive are pretty straightforward. There's variations. As you do this over time, you'll develop your own method of installing bees in a hive, but this is a very straightforward, simple approach to doing it for the first time. Step 1 is remove the can of sugar water. Using your hive tool, pry the lip of the can up and remove it from the package. Have a piece of wood or cardboard handy so that you can slide it over the hole that the can was in, so the bees are not flying around you while you remove the queen cage. There will be very small holes in the lid of the can, which allows the bees to feed during transport. When you remove the can, set it aside so the lid with the holes is pointing up so that your sugar water doesn't drip out. You can see in the picture on the right that the board is in place covering the hole, the can has been removed, and the metal tab that holds the queen cage is being lifted up in preparation for removing the cage. The actual removing of the queen cage then is the next step. The queen is in a separate small box so that the bees can get used to her scent in transport. The bees and the queen in the package do not come from the same hive or colony, so it takes some time for them to recognize themselves as a unit and to start working together. It's critical to make the introduction of the queen a success in order for the hive to be successful. If she were released in the box and just transported in that package, the bees, because they're not familiar with her, would actually kill her en route. So step 1 is lifting the metal tab holding the queen cage, sliding the metal tab to the opening and moving the cover that you've put there aside, bringing the queen cage out of the package, and then sliding the cover back in place. The queen cage itself is very important. You'll notice in the bottom there is a cork firmly attached to cover up the entrance exit hole. You carefully remove the cork so that you aren't pushing it in on top of the queen. You're pulling it out, and you replace the cork with a miniature marshmallow shoved into the hole. The marshmallow is going to provide an opportunity for the bees to slowly eat through it so the queen is not released too quickly, which once again allows time for the hive to accept her. Once the marshmallow is firmly in place, the queen cage can be hung off of a frame near the middle of the hive using the metal tab. Make sure that the screened portion of the cage is accessible from inside the hive and not pressed up against an edge or the foundation on one of the frames. The bees need to be able to access the screened side of the queen cage because they're responsible for feeding her until she's released. And even afterwards, they are the ones that provide the queen with feed. With the queen cage securely in position, take the package and using force, shake the cage hard once or twice to dislodge the bees and force them to the bottom of the package. Immediately turn the package over and shake the bees onto the frames of the hive. Most of the bees will fall out onto the top frames. If necessary, shake it once again. Any bees that are left in the package will go into the hive on their own. So close the hive, adding the inner cover and telescoping cover as the bees start going down into the frames, waiting to make sure that you don't damage too many bees by immediately forcing the inner cover on top of the mound of bees that's on top of the frames. If you slide the inner cover on, it reduces damage to your bees. You can wait to add your second hive body until you check for the release of the queen in about 3 to 5 days, or even a bit longer depending upon how quickly they're pulling out foundation. There will be plenty of space for them at this point, and closer quarters help with queen introduction. Place the package so that will still have some bees in it on the ground in front of the hive so they can go in on their own. If you wish to close off the entrance, allowing the bees a few days to become familiar with their new home, you can do so after the bees go in, which should be in a couple of hours and most definitely by evening. After 3 to 5 days, check to be sure the queen has been released. You do this by opening the hive, removing the top and inner covers. Gently open the spacing between the top bars that have the metal tab holding the queen cage. Lift the queen cage out slowly, checking to be sure she's been released before lifting it out completely. Almost always she has been released. If she hasn't, at this point you can remove the marshmallow or take it out almost all the way. Make sure the queen is alive and hasn't been damaged during installation. Assuming all is well and the queen is no longer in the cage, remove the cage completely, re-space the frames so there's equal room between them. Check your feed and add more if necessary. You also should have noticed that the bees have begun pulling out foundation in preparation to rearing brood and gathering stores. The light color that you see in the photograph is the beginning of the cells being pulled out. Open the entrance restrictor, allowing them to fly if you have had it completely closed off. Use your judgment on how open you wish to have it at this point in your hive's development. There's no need to open it completely until the hive is fully functioning and the honey flow is on, which is usually in June. There will be enough bees then to protect the hive, and the temperature will be warm enough that they will want the ventilation. In this particular case, if you look closely, this hive has been discovered by ants, so the entrance is restricted, allowing the bees the opportunity to better defend the opening to their hive. So in summary, you have done what needs doing before your bees arrive by selecting a site and having all your hive equipment ready to go. You've decided what kind of feed and how you wish to feed, and there will be a complete lesson on feeding a little bit later. Your package will arrive, and when you pick it up and bring it to your site, like I said, your hive will be ready to go. So you remove the can of sugar water from the package. You remove and prepare and install the queen cage into the hive. You dump the bees that are in the package into your hive body. You close up the hive, and approximately 3 to 5 days later, you will inspect to make sure that the queen has been successfully released and that the bees are starting to pull out their foundation.